And how you doing today, Larry?
Oh, we're doing fantastic, Josh. Nice to be back with you here on a Saturday afternoon. Hi, folks. This is the Magic Mechanic Radio Show, and I'm Larry Perry, an ASE Senior Master Auto Technician, and have been for over 40 years. I also own an auto service center in Orlando, Florida, called the Magic Mechanic, where we actually practice what we talk about here on the show. Program was started back in 1991. It's supposed to be some type of a Guinness World Record if you want to do your homework, and we broadcasted it here on WDBO every Saturday for the last 31 years. We welcome your questions about any automotive-related issue, check engine lights, engine noises, maybe your brakes feel funny, steering pulls to one side or the other, poor fuel economy, and, of course, I'm old enough to take those antique and classic car problems. Points, condensers, carburetors, line them up, and we'll take them one at a time. We'll try to get them all fixed here. Diesels, hybrid vehicles, maybe you got a recall notice in the mail, synthetic oils. Are you running the correct viscosity in your engine for Central Florida? Folks, just because it's recommended does not mean you're getting the maximum engine protection you should be getting. If you're running these 16 and 20 weight oils, you need to get on the phone. You need to call in immediately. Let me just put it that way. What's a good used car to buy? What should you stay away from? When I say battery questions now, you think of all the different batteries that's being utilized now. Now you've got, your hybrid batteries, which are pricey, and you got regular 12-volt batteries for starting, and then you've got your start-stop system batteries, and then you've got your full electric car batteries. 15 years ago, there was only one kind of battery, and it was the one to start your car with. And that was about it. Now they've got about everything that you can name. Even Mercedes and a lot of BMWs and stuff use more than one battery. Some of them use two. Some of them use three batteries now. Maybe you got an AC question. Folks, air conditioning is a lot different than it used to be. Nowadays, the number one fault with an air conditioning system is the control solenoid that goes into the compressor itself, and we replace those. We probably replace 4 or 5 of those a week. Anybody else takes one of those cars into another shop, you know what you buy? You buy the whole entire compressor. You buy a dryer, an expansion valve. The difference being you're probably spending $3,000, $3,500 as opposed to $500 or $600 is what it actually costs to fix it. So, each to his own. Each to his own. Folks, listen. Without your car questions, well, I'd have to sit here and pick on Josh a little bit, and we're really not close enough for me to do that just yet. He's only been with us for a few weeks, but we'll work our way up to it. So we just need you to go ahead and call us with your car problem. We'll talk about cars instead of picking on Josh. Also, you can email me directly, Larry at magicmechanic.com. Just that'll take you directly to the website. Just put in your year, make, and model, a brief question about what's going on with your car, and I'll go ahead and try to get to a few of those too. If I don't get to them on the show, I will get to them regardless. So don't worry about them being answered. But if you want to take a shot and get it on the air, we will try that as well. And also, folks, just so you know, you'll live in infamy. These shows are going to be categorized and played back on our new YouTube channel. So anybody that calls in, you can always go to Magic Mechanic and YouTube and actually pull up your question that you asked me, 10 years earlier. So we will be playing them. They will all be categorized, and most of them will wind up on the new YouTube channel. So with that being said, I guess our first one up is going to be Paul here in Orlando. Paul, you got an '01 Silverado. Tell us what's going on with it.
Well, no real problem. I'm the person that put the brake lines in a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm going to hire you. I'm going to give you a job.
Yeah. I've been thinking about what I can ask you today. This is just a curious question here. When you step on that emergency brake, it goes to the floor. There's not like the older cars where there's resistance, where it really locks in, whether it be a handbrake or a foot brake. And this goes to the floor. Now, years ago, I tightened up the adjustment, which runs alongside the driver's side underneath. There's a bolt that tightens it up, but it doesn't do much. And I had the car up because I'm messing with tires these days, so I had the car up on jacks, and I had the emergency brake pressed down, and I could actually, with the wheel on, move with not much problem. I can turn the wheel with the emergency brake fully locked down. This thing couldn't stop a car on the hill.
Yeah, no, they're worthless at that point.
And when I took the wheel off, I could not turn the rotor. It was tight. But before you answer if there's any direction here, I've been waiting for this recording for YouTube station or any kind of recording since you were on the air in the mornings back when you started.
My YouTube guy is probably cracking up. I've got friends of mine that finally.
That's how long I've been waiting. For
I have.
You can't always get to the Saturday show.
I know. If I was to categorize all the complaints I've had over the years, well, the station is supposed to go ahead and categorize it so you can play back, hour 1 or hour 2. And, unfortunately, when you listen to the way that the station does it, you have to listen to all the commercials again as well. So, but this way, by having it on the YouTube, it's going to be categorized with all the different cars and all the different car questions. So if it's a 2000 Honda Civic that's got an AC problem, it's going to be categorized as that, but they're also going to categorize it as they can date the shows and play the whole show back, minus commercials, of course. And so between friends of mine and a nice young gentleman that said he was going to put all this together, I have no choice but to go ahead and do it. We'll see what happens. I'm not one of these high-tech kind of guys, unless it's a car. If it's a car, I'm fine with it. But you start giving me computer and internet stuff, and I'll wind up being lost. Paul, listen, let me tell you what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to pull the rear rotors off the back of the truck, which is going to entail pulling the rear wheels. You're going to have to remove the calipers, and you're going to have to remove the rear rotors. And after you remove the rear rotors, you will see, because they use brake shoes for that emergency brake, and they go on the inside of those brake rotors, and that's how the vehicle stops. Now, at the very bottom of those emergency brake shoes, there is an adjustment, and those things are way out of adjustment. You need to put them on just like you would a regular old drum brake system, and you just get them to where you can barely hear the shoes raking against the drum. You may pull them off and find out that the daggone friction material is actually detached from the actual brake shoes themselves. But we see that all the time. But pull the rear rotors off, and I think it's going to be self-explanatory for somebody like you. You can, if the shoes are still good and there's plenty of friction material on them, go ahead and just adjust them and just get them tightened up. Put the rotors back on, and you should have a perfect emergency brake pedal at that point. If the shoes are worn out, just get a new set of emergency brake shoes for it and slap them on there, adjust them out, make sure they're they're plenty good and tight, and that'll have you in business. We appreciate your call. You call us anytime. All right, well, let's see here. We've got George here in Orlando. He's been hanging on the longest. George, how you doing today?
Larry, the little do scoop here, buddy.
How you doing, George?
I'm doing good, Larry. I was thinking when you lost Robert Howard and Stan Honeycutt.
Well, now, George, hold on a second now. I haven't made mention of this, evidently, or you missed that show. But, Robert had to leave because of his back being really, really bad. Had several operations on it. And I'd seen him last October when Stan had passed away, of course. And Robert was literally on a walker, and he was barely able to walk.
Yeah.
And then I hadn't seen him for a while, and then he shows up at the shop in January, and standing in the middle of my parking lot without a walker, cane, or anything. And I'm sitting here going, you have got to be kidding me. He had gotten a back operation in November, and I guess this guy was a miracle worker. He's actually back working part-time. Can you believe that?
That's outstanding. But, Larry, my question to you is, well, you know, you were short of mechanics, and you were asking on the radio for any good mechanics to come see you about getting a job, you know. Well, couldn't you do the same thing with some retired mechanics to work on your older cars?
What?
And relieve your older mechanics that they can do their regular job? Maybe work a few hours a week or...
George, listen. Any of that talent is welcome to bring their toolboxes. I'm just telling you point blank. We do not listen. That would be, you know, no different than Robert. You know, he's coming in like 3 days a week, and you know we're not letting him do anything extremely physical. But to have a talent like that, I mean, one of the, gee, money, Christmas. One of the most intelligent, especially GM techs that I have ever had the pleasure of meeting in my life. You know, and to have somebody like that that's still willing to come back and work a few days a week, we are blessed. He works like 3 half days a week, and he's worth $1 gazillion. It's just having somebody there that is that intelligent. But listen, George, any of those guys that you know that are retired, want to come in and work a few days a week, you can't hire talent like that anymore. It's just not out there, and it never will be. So yeah, send all the dinosaurs to me you can, buddy. I appreciate your call.
Hi, Larry.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I caught your show a couple of weeks ago and loved it. Didn't realize I was going to call in so quickly.
What can we do for you?
I have a 2021 Subaru Outback. It's 1 year old. Has been running great. Last Sunday, I went out to start the car. It was totally dead. Was able to get it started again by jumping it, and drove it up to the dealer on Tuesday. They looked at it and they said, nothing looks wrong, everything looks good, you must have left the light on or something like that, which obviously wasn't true. They did recharge the battery. I drove it home. 2 days later, it was dead again. So I understand, in reading through some emails, stuff online, that this is an ongoing problem with Subaru, and I was wondering what you knew about it and what the potential solutions might be.
You know, there is not any vehicle is subject to these parasitic draws, you know, where they will pull voltage out of the battery after it sets for any length of time. I will tell you this, before you really get way into this thing, I mean, not to take anything away from your servicing dealer or anything like that, but I would simply go to like a parts store, or you're more than welcome to swing by Magic Mechanic if you're in the area, and we just put our battery tester on it and let it see, and just see what it says. You know, it could be a situation to where the dealer's kind of like, well, it's a new car, you know, it can't be a bad battery. But yes, it can. I would hope that they've actually really tested the battery to make sure that that isn't what the deal is here. See, Ralph, when we get into these, we call them parasitic draws, and what it is, there's a few things that can cause it. And it can be very time consuming for a mechanic to actually pinpoint these draws when they're pulling a battery down. You know, first thing is alternator. An alternator can actually have a bad one-way diode in it and not only charge the battery perfectly, but when you shut the vehicle off, it can actually pull voltage right straight back out of the battery and cause the battery to die. The fuse and relay center. Now that we're using these, semiconductor boards and these micro relays, those things can stick open and cause something in the car, or even a fuel pump, to keep running even after you've exited the car and shut it off, and you got your key, your fob with you. These things can all stay alive when you get out of the vehicle, and sometimes fuse and relay center can cause issues like that. Another thing is the instrument cluster. There's so many electronics, everything in that car runs through your IPC, or the instrument cluster, and and that will cause you to have battery draw issues through it as well. But before anybody, and I'm going to be honest with you, the dealer's just hoping like heck it fixes itself, because they know that it's easy to get into a 10, 12 hour diagnostic on something like this, and it being under warranty. Somebody back there is really going to be dreading it, because these are not easy to find in some cases. Usually you've got to start disconnecting everything in the car one item at a time, and then in most cases nowadays on these new cars like this one, sometimes it takes 20 minutes for the whole electrical system to go to sleep on the car. They will actually stay powered up and for around 20 minutes, and then it'll allow the system to go to sleep while drawing nothing but just small milliamps, maybe just for memory purposes, for control modules and that sort of thing. But you think about that. Every test that you do, or everything you disconnect to check it for a draw, you're going to add another 20 minutes for the car's electrical system to actually go to sleep. So you could spend days trying to find these electrical draws that could be pulling a battery down. I think the best bet, it being a new car and not driven much, I really have a funny feeling about this battery. If it was me, I would have probably already put one in just to double check, just to make sure that wasn't the issue. But if you need to, your best bet is to take it and just get a second opinion on the health of that battery. Just let somebody else put an equipment on it that'll actually tell you the service life left on that battery. If you drive in there and they say all the battery, it tests perfect, then Katie, bar the door. We're going to be on a seek and destroy mission trying to find a draw somewhere in the system. But alternator, fuse and relay center, instrument cluster, all those things are fair game. And any module in the vehicle that is not going to sleep once you exit the vehicle very well could be the culprit. And like I said, it takes a long time to do that type of diagnostic work. And unfortunately, there is no magic scan tool or machine that's going to locate a parasitic draw like that. When you're into it, you're into it. So, and it's very difficult to find those in most cases. So, let's just hope that it is the battery, and maybe they've overlooked it. But let's try that. Go to a parts store, let them test it, see what they say. And if you got any questions, bring it by the shop. I won't charge you a dime to hook our machine to it, just to tell you what that battery really is, and whether it's on its way out or not. Even though it's a new battery, Ralph, half the folks listening to this show will tell you the same thing. You can't, just because it's a new battery or a newer car, a 2021 car, doesn't mean anything as far as the battery itself goes. I just hope that other than charging it, they actually did test that battery, with the proper equipment. These new battery testers are amazing. Not only will they tell you a battery's good or bad, it'll tell you how much life is left in it. So I'm like, it's amazing what they can actually do just by testing the battery itself. You find out what's going on with this thing, you give us a holler back. If you need my help, you swing by the shop. We will definitely put a battery tester on it, and we will tell you if that battery is worth a hoot or not. And if it isn't, then that would be the easy way out with this. If it is, then, oh boy, somebody's going to be putting in some serious time with some warranty work on your car, Ralph. Thanks for your call.
Where Teddy's got a question about a Dodge Dakota. How are you doing today, Teddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Larry?
We're doing fantastic. What you got going on with this thing?
Well, I'm a one owner. It's a 2002 Dodge Dakota SLT with a 4.7 liter. It's got 204,000 miles on it.
All right.
It once you start it up and it reaches operating temperature, it's stalling out on me, and most of the time it'll start right back up, run for another 20 minutes, stall out again. I have a scan tool, but it's not throwing any codes or anything. So, and I just to throw something in the mix to see if it would work. I replaced the camshaft sensor and the crankshaft sensor, just trying something to see if it works.
No,
it's still stalling.
I agree with that 100%. Have you put a fuel pressure gauge on it?
No, sir, I haven't tried that. No.
Well, guess what? That's your next thing. we gotta know if that thing's got fuel pressure whenever it shuts off. This isn't going to be as hard as it may sound. We need to know if you got fuel pressure when it shuts off, and if you do, considering that you've replaced the cam and crank sensor on that vehicle, we would probably, since there's no codes in it, do you have a funny feeling what I'm going to say our next step would be?
No, not really.
We probably have to look us up a used computer for it. But what we need to do first is find out if we have fuel pressure when that thing stalls out. Now, I will tell you this. There is let me see. I'll tell you what. Let's do the fuel pressure test and find out if we have an issue with that. But in the same token, I'll also want you to. There's two relays. We're going to replace both of them in the Fusion Relay Center. One of them is called an ASD relay. And that is an abbreviation for automatic shutdown relay. It's the opening relay for your computer system. Those relays can get old and ancient and decrepit, and they can become very, very, very inconsistent on how they work. And if they break contact while the vehicle's running, it'll shut it right off. The one right next to it is the fuel pump relay. I think we need to replace both of those, the ASD and fuel pump relay. And you can do that yourself. Just plug the darn things in and see what happens, if the problem goes away or not. That's the most inexpensive thing we can do to try to remedy this problem, and see if those things are either one of those are going bad. It won't set a code for it. And so there you go again. Here you are, hunting in the dark. You have nothing to go by. But we still need to do the fuel pump, the fuel pressure test, to see if we have fuel pressure when the engine stalls. That'll tell us if the fuel pump was the fault or not. If you have no fuel pressure and the engine stalls, then it's pretty much common sense. But we could have either one of those relays could be responsible for an intermittent stall like you're dealing with too, and that was a very, very, very common issue with those vehicles. So the ASD relay and the fuel pump relay, get those two, throw them in there. We don't care if it works or not. It's a cheap try, right? And the other part is, let's do that fuel pressure test to see if we're retaining fuel pressure when the engine shuts off. And then we can get into injector driver circuits and all this other craziness. And hopefully we don't even have to go there. Teddy, thanks for your call.
Tom in Kissimmee. Tom is looking to buy a car and wants to know if it's a good deal or not. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, thank you. And how you doing, Larry?
Doing good, Tom.
Okay, Larry, this is the deal. The car is being valued at $25,000. It's a 1989 Mercedes-Benz 560 SL. The car has been in the garage. It has never been started for 25 plus years. And I was wondering what are the pros and cons of a car getting it back on the road.
Well, let me just put it this way. With all the fuel system repairs that are going to be warranted for this, we could quite possibly be looking at a new fuel tank, all new fuel pump, accumulator, fuel distributor, fuel pressure control, valve, cold start injector, warm up regulator. Tom, we could be easily looking at $10,000.
That's what I was thinking there. Okay, I looked at the car. It's very well kept in the garage, but it's just sitting there. I think it wasn't a good idea. So I think I'll take your advice on that.
What kind of mileage is on the car?
Well, from what the owner says, it's got like 32,000 miles on it.
Yeah. Let me tell you like this. If the car is absolutely teetotally mint condition, and then that is extremely low mileage on the vehicle. Let me just tell you like this. If that's what you're looking for, you may not find anything any better than that. If it is a mint condition 89 560 SL, I mean, I would running and in really good shape with everything working, I would say it's probably going to be worth somewhere in the $35,000 to $40,000 range because of the extremely low mileage. And that's if it's a cherry car, But now, this is the key to it. If you could get that car for probably, let me just put it this way. If you could get it for the 14, 15K area, it would be worth venturing into it. But, you figure with everything, and I'm figuring on replacing everything fuel system related, period. And of course, when it sets that long, you're going to run into a couple other little odds and ends. But if you could get it for the $15,000 area, with no more miles on it than that, if it's in really, really good garage shape, it may be worth venturing into it. If you buy it, I'll get it running for you. But like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of fuel system work on a 20-year-old that ain't ever had gas in it in that long. So we'll be dealing with stalactites. Tom, thanks for your call. I wish you luck with it, man. Hey, folks, our sponsors are very important to the program. We all pitch in to bring you the show every week. So if you enjoy it, please patronize our sponsors and make sure you tell them you heard about them here on the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. And they are Orlando Auto Upholstery. Interior, convertible tops, carpet seats, whether it be on a car, truck, van, a SUV, a boat, a recreational vehicle, all-terrain vehicle, even commercial industrial seats and upholstery. Visit OrlandoAutoUpholstery.com. You can reach out to them at 407-898-2351. And folks, one of the most important sponsors on the program. It's not only have they been a sponsor since 1992, but it's the most important thing that you'll ever make a decision on as far as the health goes of your vehicle, and that is AMSOIL synthetic lubricants for your car, truck, van, SUV, boat, recreational vehicle, motorcycle, tractor, bulldozer, you name it. AMSOIL makes a lubricant for it. You got to ask yourself a question. Does your engine oil warranty your engine? Well, AMSOIL does. And the reason they do is because they've got the best product ever made to lubricate an internal combustion engine. Their oil is formulated out of something that's called polyalpha olefin. These are base stocks that has been derived from irradiated plastics. They actually run to heat and friction as opposed to getting hot and thin and running away from heat and friction. It's kind of like this. And the oil, you don't have to take my word for it. All you got to do is put AMSOIL in your car and you'll see how it works. See, if you put AMSOIL in your car, and let's say you take it and you drive it from here to the store, and you go ahead and you decide, I'm going to check my oil. And you go and you pull the dipstick out, you wipe it, and you stick it back in, you pull it back out while the engine is hot. And you know what? You're going to be sitting there going, oh my gosh, I'm a quart low on oil. But you're not. See, they will be one quart still hanging up inside your engine that will not release until the engine cools down. Do you remember years ago when your dad would get ready to do the oil change on the old family Buick or something? Well, he'd take it out and park it, out in the garage or out in the driveway. You start it up and let it run and get good and hot, And as a kid, you go out there, Dad, what are you doing? Oh, I'm letting that oil get good and hot so it'll all drain out. Well, see, AMSOIL works different than that. You almost need to change the AMSOIL when the engine's cooler, so you can get all the oil out. Because as an engine gets hot, the AMSOIL will still hang on to any residual friction or heat inside that motor. Once it cools down, then it'll go ahead and it'll flow right straight back down into the oil pan. But that's what you want oil to do. It works backwards of just about every oil out there on a parts store or Walmart shelf, so it's just a different way. And that's the reason you can get 500,000 mile out of a motor if you use the AMSOIL. And that's the reason AMSOIL warranties your engine against lubrication failure, because they know if you use their oil, that polyalpha olefin AMSOIL synthetic with that ester additive that they put in this, they know you will never have an internal lubrication problem with your engine. That's why they have the warranty on it that they do. It's like you change your oil with AMSOIL and you're basically getting a free engine warranty along with it. Think about that. So next time you change your oil, well, a lot of folks say, well, next time I'm going to change my oil, I'm going to change my oil. Change it to AMSOIL. Jasper engines and transmissions. You got a family car or you pickup truck, you've went and you priced out some new ones, and maybe you need a motor. Maybe the one you got just wore slap out, and you go and you look at, I think I priced up a F450 the other day, just out of curiosity, not that I want one. And it was $142,000. And a loaded F-150, a Platinum or a King Ranch, well, they're up to about $80,000 now. And then you sit around and you wonder, well, is it worth putting $5,000 or $6,000 in a new, for a new engine in a F-150? Well, I don't even think I need to even continue with that conversation. That wouldn't even hardly be the sales tax on a $140,000 vehicle. Think about it. So when it comes time to replace an engine or transmission, definitely consider that. And if you're going to think about using a Jasper engine or transmission, they got 100,000 mile nationwide warranty on them, and it's parts and labor. So you really can't beat that type of a warranty, especially on an expensive repair item like an engine or transmission. To find out more about Jasper, just go to jasperengines.com. You can even see the updates they do on engines and transmissions that makes them better than when they were brand new. So something to consider. And the Magic Mechanic Auto Service Center, located in Orlando, Florida. Engines, transmissions, brakes, suspension, steering, electrical repairs, and some of the and fix some of the hardest cars to fix there is on the planet. And of course, AMSOIL synthetic lubricants. You can visit us at magicmechanic.com or email me directly your make and model and your car problem, Larry at magicmechanic.com. All right, let's head back to the phones. We're going to go to David in Winter Park. David, tell me what's going on.
Yes, sir. I just purchased a brand new 2022 VW Tiguan, and the person told me that I didn't need to change the oil out for 10,000 miles, and I want to put AMSOIL in it, so I'll probably be making a visit to you. Did he tell me the right thing, or because I was under the impression you run it a couple of thousand miles, and then that's when you change out to AMSOIL?
With the oil change monitoring systems a lot of the European cars use, David, now this is not anything I would ever prescribe under any circumstances whatsoever. But do you know there is folks that'll take a BMW back to a dealer with 20,000 mile on their oil, and unless that oil monitoring system that's in the car says to change the oil, they don't change it. They will leave it in there. And me, that just sends shivers down my back. I'm like, I think that's crazy town talk. I would never leave an oil in my engine. Number one, for 20,000 mile, and darn sure not over 20,000 mile without sending the oil out for analysis to have it checked. I know that these, these monitoring systems that they have on these computers are pretty smart and intelligent, but how in the world are they going to be able to tell you if there is fuel contamination or anything else in that oil? It's going to take a real analysis in order to come up with that type of information. I don't, when it comes time for your first oil change, let's think about it like this. I think anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 mile is fine. Now, what happens is, and the reason a lot of these car manufacturers want to extend these oil changes out as far as they possibly can, and even judging, error-wise as far as what could happen in it to an engine by using the oil as long as they do. I know they're not using AMSOIL on these things. I think when they sell these maintenance packages, and let's all be realistic here, it all boils down to money sometimes. I'm thinking that, let's just make them squeak every possible mile out of this oil. So they if you buy the maintenance package, well, you never need to change the oil. Well, wait a minute. I paid you $2,000 for that maintenance package. Well, yeah, but you don't need to change your oil because it's going to cost them money. You see what I'm saying? So be real careful with that and take it with a grain of salt. And in your case, 3,000 to 5,000 mile probably be ideal, for the rings to seat to the cylinder walls. And you're going to have some metallic get into oil when this happens. I mean, it's just the way a motor's made, After the ring seat, you get a little debris in there, a little metallic. Need to change it. Now, this is the other key to it. Do you know this hard-working little 2.0 engine in that Tiguan with this big, huge turbocharger on it that gets hotter than Hades? They want you to run 0-20 oil in this engine. Now, that's in my limited vocabulary. That's motor murder. You can't lubricate an engine with a big turbo on it like that with 0-20 to boot. If it was mine, it would have 0-30 AMSOIL Signature Series in it. That's going to give you about 33% more engine protection than the manufacturer is recommending. So you got some decisions to make, David. Thanks for your call. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. All right. I got the 289 4-speed 6 Mustang. And I went to change it. I was going to change the points in it, and dual points. And I can do single, but I wasn't sure about the dual, so I ordered a electronic ignition for it. I was wondering what's changing it or not.
I don't see a problem with that. You can, it's like this. Realistically, the reason that they would, folks want to change from points to electronic is, they don't have to adjust the point gap, something that they don't want to deal with. And the other thing is the reason that points kind of went by the wayside is for racing purposes. When you got an engine up to anything over, say, 5,000 RPM, as far as a racing situation goes, you get into a point to where those points would start floating, and you would start having a little bit of breakup on top end, and where you don't have those types of issues with electronic ignition. To put an electronic ignition on it, the biggest thing is to make sure that the system that you're getting and you're trying to upgrade with, you know exactly what voltage it runs off of and the coil needs. You can't just run 12 volts to those systems because it'll burn them up. So you'll have to find out what the power requirement is to the coil, and so the distributor can work with it correctly. Not most of them usually work off of about 6 to 8 volts, and I don't know if your system will come with a ballast resistor or exactly what. So, if your best bet is to look at the wiring schematic that comes with the product that you bought, and look and see what the specs are for the power that goes to it, and whether it runs through a ballast resistor or not before it goes into the coil. If not, it'll just burn the ignition system up. So you really need to kind of look into that, because you may not be able to use the same voltages that you were using off of the point system. And number two, if you do install the updated electronic ignition system, make sure that you keep that old distributor. That old dual points distributor is worth a fortune. So you want to make sure you hang on to that. So if you ever do anything with the car down the road, you will have the original equipment distributor put back in the vehicle. But, man, I could talk about this car all day long, John. I'd love to know more about it, the type of carburation system that's on it. If it was a factory 4-speed 66 Mustang, it's actually a pretty rare car, because those things they're disappearing off the face of the earth. LarryMagicMechanic.com. Send me some more info on that, and if I can help you with it, I'll definitely guide you through any project you get a hold of with it, John. We appreciate your call.
Robert from Winter Garden. A friend of mine is giving me, or selling me really inexpensively, a 2013 Chevy Equinox. It belonged to her mother. Mother passed away a year ago. It's been sitting outside of a garage in Indiana for 2 years now. Has not been run or anything. I'm just wondering, I know I have to change the brake, all the fluids, battery, things like that. The interior and exterior are in good condition. Just wondering if there's anything else I should look into. Maybe, is it worth me getting it?
Well, it would depend on a few other things too, like the amount of miles that are on the vehicle. If it's all there and it's in decent shape, well, I don't see why it would be an issue. Now, I will tell you this: if it's been sitting for 2 years, gas tank's going to have to be removed and have it sent out and have it boiled and cleaned. You're going to have to replace the fuel pump module in it, because it's going to be locked up completely just from that gas sitting that long. And then at that point, probably do a fuel injector flush on the thing before you even try to start it. So you got a gas tank's got to be clean. You got a fuel pump module. You need to do a fuel injection cleaning on it before you even try to get anything through it, because those injectors have been sitting with old gas in them for 2 years as well. They may come back to life. They may not. They may need to be replaced. Usually they'll clean up, though, if you do a high pressure injector cleaning on them. And other things is, you may as well figure on putting a battery in it. Battery is going to be bad. Make sure it's got coolant in it, before you even try to start it up. So you may as well plan on, I would say, conservatively, if everything else is in okay condition, engine-wise and transmission-wise, you're probably going to be spending $1,000, $1,500 on it. Now, I will leave you with this food for thought as well. The timing chain on those little 2.4 motors, those little Ecotechs, they have a tendency to give you some issues at around 100,000 miles. So it might be something that you want to kind of look into after you get the vehicle up and running and get it going. But look at it like this. if the vehicle is in decent shape, you know, and you can make a good daily driver out of this thing for, you know, $2,000 or $3,000. What are you going to buy for $2,000 or $3,000 nowadays? You're not going to buy anything. It's not going to need $4,000 or $5,000 worth of work. So, you know, if you can get something like that and get it up and running, you know, see, it's going to leave you two choices. Either you're going to have the work done up there, or you're going to drag it back to Orlando to have the work done. You know, and if you're going to drag it back to Orlando, best thing to do is either use your pickup truck or borrow one, get you a dolly, and, you know, either pick one up in Illinois or whatever and hook it on the back of the truck and pull it back yourself, because you darn sure don't want to pay to have it transported right now. You get a vehicle transported from up north down to Florida now, they're liable to want $4,000. Then that's what they were asking for one, I think, from Minnesota to Florida here the other day, and the customer did the same exact thing. He took his pickup truck, got him a dolly, hooked on the back of it, and went and got the vehicle and brought it back himself. You know, I know gas is expensive, but $4,000 to bring a vehicle from Minnesota to Florida, I thought was a little bit crazy. Hey, listen, we appreciate your call, and I wish you the best with that little Equinox.
Go ahead, Zach.
Hey, Larry. This is my girlfriend's car. It's a 07 Ford Edge, and it has 3 lights on the cluster. The windshield washer, the door ajar, and the gas, the gas cap. And I pulled the lights out of the interior because they were on all night. They're on all the time. And I was wondering, how do I fix that?
You did. You pulled the lights out of the instrument cluster?
No. Out of the interior lights, the door ajar, because it says there's a door open, but the doors are closed. So the interior lights stayed on. Yeah,
so you pulled you took the interior light out so it wouldn't run the battery down.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. This is the situation. All right. The fuel cap thing, you know, I don't even know why that's something that even come up, or even they'd put it on a dash, you know, instrument cluster. All the times that light's come on, I don't think I've ever seen a loose gas cap in my life. What it is, it's got an evaporative emissions code in the system, and that means that there's an evaporative system leak somewhere in the car. And the way those are located is we hook a smoke machine to the vehicle on the evaporative emissions part, and we turn on the machine and we look for a smoke show, and that's going to tell us whether we got a leaky solenoid or whether we've got a hose loose underneath the car or something going on, charcoal canister. That's got to be diagnosed and figured out. You know, a lot of times those issues don't really cause any drivability problems, but it is something that should be addressed. The most likely your door latch switch in the driver's door is probably stuck in the open position, and it's not it's not breaking contact whenever the door is shut, so it's not turning everything off inside the car like it's supposed to. Let's see, we got the door light, we got the evaporative fuel system. What else? Did you throw one more thing at me? I think that was it, wasn't it?
Well, windshield washer light is on and it's full and working.
Okay, well now that's a level sensor that's probably bad in the washer bottle. Now those are all little things. I mean, they're not anything major, you know. Real quick, that car's got a 3.5 V6 motor in it. Now, just so you know, it's got an internal water pump, Zach, and it's got one of those internal water pumps that can literally leak all your engine coolant right directly into your engine oil and take the motor out. So, depending on how many miles are on this vehicle, the most important thing that you can consider doing if you're going to keep it around and try to avoid car payments is maybe consider putting a water pump in this thing. And anybody that's got a 3.5 liter motor, Ford, in a front-wheel drive Ford application, it is imperative that you know this, because that water pump will take your motor out faster than anything. Just Google that, Zach, and you can, they've been class action suits and everything else over this stupid water pump in this car, but you need to educate yourself on it just so you know what you're dealing with, and they get a few pennies saved up and maybe get that internal water pump replaced so you don't wind up losing an engine on it. That, like I said, these other things would be the least of your problem if you lose a motor. So look into that, educate yourself on it, let us know if we can help you with it, and thanks for your call.
Thank you so much, Zach. We appreciate you popping on for a few seconds. Let's just try and take one more caller before the break. Rose is calling from Sanford. Got a question about her 2010 Buick Enclave. Go ahead, Rose.
Rose, you with us?
Rose, can you hear me? Well, we appreciate
I'm here now, sorry.
There you are. Hey, Rose. Go ahead with Larry Perry.
Oh, okay. I have a 210 Enclave, 2010, and just out of the blue, for no reason at all, I will start the car in the morning, and sometimes when I park it at a store and then get back out in it, it doesn't want to go out of first gear. I stop the car, put it in park, put it back in first. 98% of the time, that solves the problem.
Okay.
I'm thinking, maybe could that be a computer problem?
Yeah. Rose, how many miles are on the car?
Too many. 210.
Okay.
But other than that, it runs fine.
Okay. Now, listen, there is an electronic range switch on your transmission that lets the computer system know what gear you have selected. Now, if that range switch is going bad, it may not be making contact or whatever, and if the computer system does not know what gear you have selected, then of course it'll kind of default and it'll stay in one gear. Do you have a check engine light on?
No.
Okay. All right. It still should be scanned. When I say that, a technician needs to drive the car with a scan tool on it, reading data, and then they can look and see for transmission data if it's getting the correct speed sensor, that it's actually able to take the speed of the vehicle and everything else, and you can also look at solenoids to see what they're doing, because those electric solenoids have to activate in order to create the shift. So, and then with the correct scan tool, we can actually go bilaterally and actually shift the car with the scan tool. So that way we can find out if it's anything internal or whether it's a solenoid that's getting weak and not shifting correctly, or if there's a glitch in the actual switch on the side of the transmission that identifies which gear you're in. So I ain't going to be able to fix it over the air today, but I'll tell you, it's going to have to be scanned, and somebody's going to have to look at the data while they're driving the car. I hope that helps you, Rose. Thanks for the call.
Doing fine. First, let me thank Larry for all the services he provides.
Well, thank you, James.
You're welcome. I've got an old car that I'm thinking of replacing. The next car that I get, I'll probably keep for 10 years. I'll only drive 3,000 to 5,000 miles a year. And I really am confused about the EVs versus the hybrids versus sticking with the ICE cars. There's a lot of changes going on with the EVs, and I don't know what one now compared to what they'll be like in 2 or 3 years would be, especially concerning the batteries. And then for the ICE cars, I'm not sure what the availability of parts will be after 2030 when they get away from having anything other than EVs and hybrids. So your expert opinion, if you were in my position, what would you be looking at?
James, listen, there's going to be internal combustion engines and gas stations way past 2030. I know that there's a lot of hype and a lot of stuff trying to sway people into the electrics, but don't believe that for a minute. There'll still be Wawa stations, let's put it that way, and there'll still be plenties of new internal combustion cars on the road. And let me tell you what, after a few folks with electric vehicles get their batteries, in a situation where they have to be replaced, and they're going to have $25,000 bills to replace a battery. Me personally, I will never let anybody ever dictate to me like that. You either buy a $25,000 battery from me or you walking. That'll never happen to me. I mean, it's going to happen to a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but who's going to wind up wanting to spend that kind of money on an 8 or 10-year-old car? I just don't see it, and I think a lot of folks are, got some amazing false hopes. You can buy a lot of gas for $25,000. I think a lot of environmentally wise for what it actually does as far as the environment to build the electric battery to start with is no more friendlier than us using gasoline. And then number two, what are you going to do with this lithium ion once it's wore out? The other thing too is look up electric car battery fires, and who in the world would want anything like that within 20 miles of their house when they go up? There's things there that I would never be comfortable with. The one thing is, you look at a Toyota Prius or something like that, the plug-in hybrids, well, you can get 40, 50 miles out of those things without ever having to do anything to them or even use gas, but you always got the gas as a backup if you needed it. You're not going to be at a service plaza fighting over who can plug their darn electric car in. I just don't see that, A hybrid, if that's what you're wanting, if you're wanting hyper fuel economy, I think a hybrid's probably the smartest thing to do. But if you don't do a lot of driving, I don't see any problem with going with an ICE car, an internal combustion engine. It just, I don't see don't let somebody sway you beyond your common sense. I just, $25,000 for an electric car battery, I just don't think I'm going to let anybody ever dictate to me like that. I might be a little old-fashioned and I might not be the most computer savvy, but I'm not going to take a chance on somebody telling me that I have to buy a $25,000 battery to drive to work. I think that's crazy town talk. But you've got a lot to think about there. But like I said, if you're looking for hyper fuel economy, I think your best bet would probably be to look into the hybrids. But when you take a hybrid, for an example, like I said, if it's a plug-in hybrid, you get the first 40-some miles or whatever for free. That's one thing to look at. And plus, the hybrid batteries, when you go to having to replace those, usually you're looking at $3,500, $4,000 for a reman battery, which, I mean, that's a lot of money, but that beats the living daylights. That wouldn't pay the tax on a $25,000 Tesla or some of these Audi batteries that are out there now. It depends on how long you plan on keeping it. If you're leasing one and you're getting rid of it every 3 years, that might be your best bet if you want a full electric. That way you ain't going to be the guy having to buy a $25,000 battery. Folks, that's going to do it for today. Robert, email me, Larry at magicmechanic.com. Hey, thanks for tuning in. You listeners, customers, show sponsors are the reason we do the show, and I have a job. You can tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time in Central Florida on 107.3 FM, HD Radio 96.52, and AM 580. Worldwide at WDBO.com, and click Listen Live, or just tell your smart speaker to play WDBO Radio every Saturday at 3 o'clock. Hey, if you need help with your vehicle, you can always call Magic Mechanic at 407-629-2661. Visit our website, magicmechanic.com, or you can also email me car questions directly, Larry at magicmechanic.com. Until next week, be safe in and out of your car, and we'll see you back here next Saturday at 3 p.m.